A 6.0 earthquake has just hit the United States, and officials on the West Coast are now issuing warnings and alerts that people need to be getting ready and getting prepared. We're also seeing new deployments of the National Guard potentially to new major cities. Also, we are seeing wildfire spread and towns and entire communities being burned down. So let's get into all the details here. You can see here this 6.0 earthquake just hit Alaska. This happened earlier today. This happened in Nikolski, Alaska, and this is in the Aleutian Islands. You can see here not too far from Russia actually, where this 8.8 hit. And this is one of the biggest ones that we've seen here actually in Alaska outside of Russia. So we've seen a lot of 5 and 6.0 activity, magnitude activity. We can see here 5.3 that hit the Kamchatka Peninsula. But this 6.0, it's now moving over to Alaska. This pressure is being released, and a 6.0 is nothing to laugh about. Okay, the 6.0 that hit in Afghanistan a few days ago, tragically, has caused around 1,400 people's lives to be lost, right? So a 6.0 is a very strong earthquake, and thankfully not many people live out here in the Aleutian Islands, but this is concern because potentially now this geological activity is making its way closer to Alaska, the mainland, and also down into the west coast. We could see this pressure transferred. You could also see around Yellowstone there's been a lot of activity as well too, and even in Idaho we had a 3.0 here, and officials in Oregon as well are issuing alerts and warnings that the West Coast and Oregon itself should be getting ready. You can see this 1.2 in Oregon and this 2.6 off the coast in Oregon along the Cascadia and subduction zone. And these authorities, you can see here, it says after tsunami warnings, calls grow to modernize Oregon's disaster preparedness. All right, so there was this initial tsunami warning that went out for much of the West Coast, Alaska, all along the Pacific Rim when this 8.8 megaquake hit Russia last month, or 2 months ago now, on July 29th is when it hit. And officials are now warning, representatives for Oregon are now warning that they want to modernize the alert systems and preparedness systems so people can be more readily prepared in advance for any type of disaster, right? We're also seeing, we'll get into more details of that in just a second. We're also seeing wildfires near Yosemite National Park tear through historic gold rush town, right? This is called Chinese Camp. There's not a lot of people that live here, but it's a historic town near Yosemite, and it's being burnt to the ground very quickly, right? These fires in California are spreading and evacuations have been ordered, right? It's scorched already over 13,000 acres with no containments as of Wednesday afternoon. This is called the TCU September Lighting Complex Fire, all right? Kind of a strange name there, but they have their names for them. So lots of fires in California right now, and this is also causing air quality alerts to be issued as well too. So hopefully some rain comes soon. This area is extremely dry. There's been a lot of wind, and they need some rain and hopefully even snow in these more mountainous areas. Can't come soon enough, right? It's still going to be a little while, but hopefully they can get some relief sometime soon. All right, we're also getting word that we'll get into more details of these fires, but we're also getting word here too that there could be deployments of the National Guard. You guys can see here, this article just came out today. It says Trump suggests National Guard could go into New Orleans, which they are saying is a blue city and a red state. there's kind of been this debate back and forth which cities and states exactly should the National Guard be deployed to. And now Trump is mentioning New Orleans. It says here, President Trump suggested Wednesday that New Orleans could be his next target for deploying the National Guard to fight crime, potentially expanding the number of cities around the nation where he may send federal law enforcement. He already has plans to send them into Chicago and Baltimore following his deployment to Washington, D.C. All right, so just something to be aware of. We could see even more troops on the streets of these U.S. cities, and hopefully it has a positive impact on crime. It seems like it overall has. You can see here, it says that they're reporting 1,760 arrests citywide since the president first mobilized federal forces on August 7th. All right, so hopefully it does help. And some of these areas are unsafe, especially at nighttime. You know, you're definitely not going to, maybe during the day they're okay, but a lot of these areas at nighttime do become very unsafe and sketchy for people to be there. And sometimes it even affects tourism and affects businesses, things like that. All right, so let me know what you guys think down below of that. Let's get into more details here of what they want to do. All right, it's saying here Rep. Paul Evans has announced a $300 million proposal to modernize Oregon's disaster preparedness, aiming to improve communication systems, strengthen infrastructure, and expand local readiness efforts over the next decade. And Rep. Gomberg is discussing where Oregon has made progress, where significant vulnerabilities remain, and how new investments could help the state better prepare for the next major crisis, whether it's a tsunami, a wildfire, or another emergency altogether. All right, so there was actually a study released recently that if a major earthquake did hit the Cascadia subduction zone, which is right outside of Oregon, then it could potentially cause a tsunami in the hundreds of feet due to the displacement of the plate, because it would drop so much, right? They're saying there could be a potential drop of the Cascadia plate hundreds of feet and causing the shoreline to essentially be entirely changed and cause a major tsunami as well too in the aftermath of this plate displacement. Okay, so that's worst case scenario, but they're saying that that is the big one that people need to be prepared for if you are in Oregon or Washington or Northern California. This entire area could potentially be affected. You could see here, this is the region we're talking about, this line, the Cascadia zone, all the way going from Northern California all the way up into Canada even, right? But this is the main point that they are worried about, and you can see all these red lines are fault lines, small fault lines, but they're all fault lines in this subduction zone. Right, so something to be aware of, something to be prepared for. You don't have to panic, but seeing the 6.0 hit Alaska is concerning. And you can see here, just over the past 24 hours, 61 earthquakes recorded by the USGS in Alaska. All right, for the continental United States, you can see here 167 earthquakes are showing right now, primarily in the west. Here, 167 earthquakes shown, a lot of them down here in Southern California. All right, so we are getting more activity. We're still getting this area here outside of Elko, Nevada, that's getting hit over and over. You could see a couple earthquakes actually hitting Salt Lake City, a 1.2 and a 1.1. All right, so, and Texas as well too, just continuous earthquakes every single day. Lots of rattling in Texas. And these fires as well too, which could potentially be linked, some of them, to geological activity, because there are potential methane and natural gas releases happening when there's geological activity. It creates new pathways for natural gas to rise to the surface, and then it can easily be ignited, and it's hard to put out these fires. All right, some of them are human caused, some of them are lightning caused, some of them are utility caused, and some of them are potentially gaseous caused from methane and natural gas being released from the Earth's crust. And you can see here, it says here that they have closed the major route between the Bay Area and Yosemite National Park. Highway 120 is closed between Yosemite Junction and Jacksonville Road, and Highway 49 is closed between Chinese Camp and the junction with Highway 8. Caltrans said in a Facebook post there's no estimated time of reopening. Right, and you can see some of the destruction here. It says a view of a historic building in the Chinese Camp, California, that was destroyed by the 6.5 fire in the TCU September Lightning Complex on September 3rd, 2025. All right, so these fires are devastating communities. They're devastating entire neighborhoods, and even these small towns and these historic towns as well too, maybe where a lot of people don't live, but now the history is gone. You can see here, here's another property that was burned down from this, right? And they're bringing equipment to clear it out, and a lot of times they do clear it out, but there's no rebuilding. A lot of times these areas will just be deemed too toxic to rebuild. You can't have a well, and you can't even get permits because of the fire. And they're saying it's essentially just not safe. It's a health hazard, health risk to live in some of these areas, right? That's what's happened time and time again after these fires hit, especially in places like California. We've seen these Palisades fire outside of Malibu. There's still been no progress made on people's homes, and a lot of times people can't even get in to clean up because it's been deemed a toxic waste zone essentially, and they're saying they have to wait for authorities to get in there and clean up first, and then they can go in. So it's been this huge battle, and it's just sad to see another place go up in flames like this. And you can see the smoke plume is primarily over Canada right now. All right, the winds are pushing more northwestern and blowing the smoke up into Canada instead of blowing down into the US like it has been happening primarily for the past few months over summertime, getting these Arctic air fronts blowing air into the United States. There's still some areas of bad air quality, like in Washington here. Purple alert's been issued. All right, it says everyone limit or avoid outdoor physical activity, and that's due to these multiple fires that have just popped up recently in the past few days that are already thousands of acres, and it overwhelms authorities. It's just, I'm always baffled how there's so many fires that just pop up. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 different fires just in this small little frame in eastern Washington. They're all right next to each other, but they're not connected. So it's just hard to understand how these fires all pop up around the same time. This fire is from September 2nd. This one's September 1st. That one's August 30th, August 29th, and September 1st. So all within the past 4 days, these fires have popped up one after another right near each other. So it's just suspicious in my view. It's either conditions are just absolutely perfect and there's lightning strikes going on, or there's somebody starting fires, potentially even intentionally could be happening, could be unintentional too, or maybe these areas are like geological hotspots where there's realigning of the earth happening and it's releasing methane gases and natural gases that are causing these fires, and then any little spark can cause these fires and fuel them as well too, because it's not just like a normal fire, it's getting fuel from the methane or the natural gas and allows it to spread even quicker and continue to spread. So who knows? We're not sure exactly. All right, they say most of these are natural or undetermined, but it's just hard to process that all these fires pop up within a few days of each other, all in the same region, right? Because if there's fires, you would think people would be more careful and not want to light these fires, but we see this time and time again, right? And there actually has been some earthquake activity in Washington, not exactly where these fires are, but you can see here's a 0.06 in Washington, a 1.3, and also a 0.03 watts of a little earthquake swarm hitting Mount Rainier in Washington, 0.02, right? And there's actually been alerts issued for volcanoes in Alaska. So the Shishaldin volcano, which actually is right outside of where this earthquake hits in Alaska. So you can see here, this earthquake hit right outside of Nikolski, right outside of Alaska. And you can see this is essentially right where the Shishaldin volcano is as well too. So I want to get this map up really quick so you guys could just see how close this really is. All right, so here is where Nikolski is and where the earthquake hit right in the waters, and here is where Mount Shishaldin is. All right, so here's Nikolski, here's Shishaldin, and they're right near each other in the Aleutian Islands of Alaska, all right, probably a couple hundred miles away from each other, which in relative terms, when you zoom out, I mean, it's pretty darn close to have an earthquake hitting near this volcano, which is actively under a yellow advisory right now. You can see here's the Shishaldin volcano. This is the Alaska Volcano Observatory. You can see here it says frequent small earthquakes were detected by the local monitoring network at the Shishaldin volcano over the past day. It says no eruptive activity was occurred and partly cloudy satellite and webcam views. All right, and you're seeing here it says recent updates, small earthquakes and infrasound signals continue. This has been going on the past week or two when they raised the alert level to a yellow. All right, so something to be aware of. All right, we could see another eruption here. It has happened before, and we could see another one happen at Shishaldin. We also could see one happen at Mount Spur in Alaska as well too. All right, so thank you guys. I hope you guys are staying safe, staying prepared out there, staying stocked up. I hope you have big blessings for your wife and your family, and I hope you have a big old blessed day.